It seems to be a popular debate amongst gym goers as to whether deadlifts are a back exercise or a leg exercise, and whether you should do them on back day or pull day or on leg day. My name's Naveed, and I remember when I first started working out, I went to the gym with my friends, and we just went for deadlift PRs, right? And I couldn't even break 150 pounds off the floor. But now I deadlift about 3 times my body weight, which is 405. And in this video, I want to discuss whether deadlifts are a back exercise or leg exercise. And I'm going to settle this debate. Now, there's really two main things to think about here, and that is the muscles worked and also what day you should deadlift on. And so let's get into the muscles worked on a deadlift. Now, the muscle that's worked the most on a deadlift by far is going to be your ego for sure. No, I'm just kidding, but some muscles worked mainly are going to be your spinal erectors, or your lower back, glutes and hamstrings, and also upper traps isometrically, as well as your grip. I mean, of course, it's kind of like a full body exercise because you have to get everything tight, but I would consider those like the ones that are mainly working. Now, if you go heavy like I do, I try to go pretty heavy, usually not higher than 5 reps, or just kind of go for a PR, then I mostly feel it in my lower back. And people would say, oh, well, doesn't that mean it works your back then? That doesn't that mean it's a back exercise? Well, the thing is, when I think of your back, I don't necessarily think of like the lower back, and I'm sure you don't either. It's mostly, the lats, the traps, rhomboids, all those muscles. And when it comes to working those muscles that actually make your back look aesthetic and give all the details, then there's just kind of better movements that don't just train it isometrically, because with a deadlift, all of those like upper back muscles are mostly trained isometrically. Now, upper traps specifically can grow pretty well, but lats, I mean, there's probably better movements such as, pull-ups, pull-downs, and different row variations, as well as for like mid-traps and all those other muscles. So, I mean, technically your spinal erectors are your back, but like, come on, I mean, it's lower back. Like, so if I were to rank which muscles are worked the most, I would say number one is spinal erectors, and then after that, probably glutes and hamstrings, and then sort of separate from that, I would say like grip and upper traps are hit pretty well, but I wouldn't consider them like main movers. Now, one thing is form change can definitely affect what muscles are being worked. Like for me, I go pretty heavy, so sometimes my back is a little more rounded. That could activate more of the spinal erectors and make them more of a prime mover, compared to if you have like a really good form and sort of more like IR, like internal rotation, then you could maybe be working a lot more glutes and hamstrings. So the part of your back that deadlifts hit is basically just your lower back, or spinal erectors in general, and also maybe the upper traps a bit. And I think it does a pretty good job at hitting those muscles. Like my lower back has gotten very thick from basically just deadlifts, but it's not really doing as much for like the lats or the mid traps, rhomboids, teres, major and minor, like all the muscles that make your back actually look aesthetic and like give it the details and the width. It's not really working those muscles, and that's what I would really consider like your back to be made up of. And like if you're talking about back training, I'm thinking of those muscles, not really like your lower back. And it's not really a back or leg exercise. Like it's kind of a combination. It just works a certain group of muscles. There's no need to put it into one or the other category of a back exercise or a leg exercise. Now let's get into something a little more practical and probably more important, which is when I do my deadlifts. So age-old question, pull day or leg day, right? I do them on leg day. Let's just say you're doing a push-pull leg split, right? And let's say you're deadlifting on pull day. Well, then the next day, if you're doing legs, then deadlifting on pull day is going to sort of impact the next day. Your lower back might be a bit more fatigued for squats. And it's just overall less recovery. It's kind of more impact, because I would say deadlift is mostly lower body. And if you're doing that the day before legs, then it could definitely have a recovery impact, considering that deadlifts do create a little bit more fatigue than most other things. Now you might be saying, well, what if I do pull push legs and I have one day in between my deadlift and my leg day, right? Well, you kind of got to look at it in the whole week. If you're doing pull, push legs, pull, push legs, rest, for example, well then in the middle of that you're doing legs and then pull the next day. So that's probably even worse, honestly, if you're fatiguing your legs before you deadlift. Because once again, you're just creating more overlap and less time to recover since you're doing it the day after. So it's overall just kind of less recovery. Now, let's say if you deadlift on leg day, which is what I do. Now, if you just take the example of the push-pull leg split, 6 days a week, then you're always getting a 2 full days of rest and 3 full days of rest between each leg day. So for example, I do legs Tuesday and Friday. So between Tuesday and Friday, that's 2 days of full rest for my lower body. And then between Friday and Tuesday is 3 full days of rest. Whereas if you're doing it on pull day, then it's almost like you're doubling your frequency of lower body. Maybe not to like that extent, but it's still going to have some overlap and probably affect your leg days. I'm basically just kind of grouping the entire lower body together to maximize recovery. Now you might be thinking, well, if you deadlift on leg day, that means you're also squatting on the same day. That's not possible. You can't squat and deadlift on the same day. I know it may come as a surprise, but you can actually deadlift and squat on the same day, and that's what I do. Now, I feel like squats just kind of like prime up my CNS and get me almost more warmed up for deadlifts rather than fatigued. And I still feel strong on my deadlift after squatting. Like, I go to failure on squats and I'm still pretty strong afterward. And one tip for this is I try to squat more upright and more quad focused so that way my lower back doesn't really get that fatigued and I'm basically perfectly fine for deadlifts. I have noticed some days where my lower back is getting more involved in squats, then my deadlifts feel a bit worse. But overall, if you're squatting more upright, which is what I try to do to hit the quads better anyways, then I basically feel no impact on my deadlift. Also, another thing is that I would definitely not put squats after deadlift. I always put squats first because they're kind of the hardest thing, and if you do anything before squats, then you're kind of less likely to want to do them because they're pretty hard, and also you're just more fatigued, and it's just best to put them first, get the hardest thing done right away, and then go to deadlift. And also, if you deadlift first and then squat, then your lower back is a bit more fatigued, and you really don't want your lower back to be too fatigued during squats because it's just going to take away from your quads more. Whereas in a deadlift, it's going to be working anyways as like the prime mover. Also, deadlifts are just really fun for me, honestly, and it kind of gives me something to look forward to on a leg day. Like, if I didn't deadlift on leg day, I would probably have like, I don't know, at least like a 18% higher chance of skipping legs. I'll talk a bit more about that in my video about skipping legs. I just like to group all my lower body together, do my squats, deadlifts, and then all the kind of like machines, like leg extension, leg curl, and then calves. I mean, you can still do squats on pull day if you want. Like, I can see how if you're a bit more rested and you're doing deadlifts first thing, then you could be a little better off. But for me, I honestly just feel a bit more warmed up after squats. Because I feel like whenever I go in the gym and the first thing I'm doing, like, it's not as good. Like, usually the next few sets are better. And, like, I just get more warmed up, more primed, and I just feel stronger. And especially since I squat more upright and quad focused, then my lower back doesn't really get fatigued that much. But I still do try to, like, make sure I rest a bit in between after I finish squats and go to deadlift. You don't just want to go right into it because your lower back might still be recovering a bit. Now, sometimes when it's leg day, I do my squats during my lunch break at school since the gym is like right next to my school, right? So I do my squats at lunch, and then I have about 3 hours of rest before I do deadlifts after school. So, I mean, that would be pretty good if you are able to do that. But, I mean, you don't really have to do that either. Like, just yesterday, it was leg day, right? And I did squats, and I went to failure pretty hard. My quads were burning, and then literally right after, I hit a deadlift PR of like 410. I mean, my grip kind of gave out, but still, I kind of locked it out, okay? But I dropped it like right as I locked it out. So are deadlifts a back or leg exercise? It doesn't matter, okay? All that matters is that you're doing it on a day where you feel good, you feel strong, and it's not impacting other things, and you're making progress. Really, that's all that matters. But if I had to choose, I would say, if we're choosing between upper body and lower body, I would say lower body. If you want to say legs versus back, honestly, I would say like it's kind of like a lower back exercise and maybe a bit of glutes and hamstrings. By the way, check out my Instagram if you want to see all my new deadlift PRs and stuff. I just post like progress, mainly lifts, and also some physique pictures. Yeah, that's it for this video. Have a good one.